freaking first cut. Golly.
Welcome to the First Cut Podcast. I'm Rick Gehman, and this is your DFS preview for this week's Procore Championship. Joining me to break it all down, Greg DuCharme is here. Hello, Greg.
Rick, it's time to get back to work. Okay, the off season is over. I hope you got your training in and you're ready to go because it's here. Season's back. I'm fired up about it.
Season is indeed back. Don't be scared by the name of this tournament. This is formerly known as the Fortinet Championship. We're going back to Silverado. It's back in Napa, so no worries there. Now, Greg, what I am most excited about is a full field cut event, which feels like we have not had. I know it was the Wyndham Championship, but it feels like we haven't had it in a long time.
Yeah, well, the Wyndham was interesting, right? Because there are all these different storylines that go on there. So that is, it's like a completely different event in a strange way. And this is back to what it should be. It's in a way become a novelty. And it's cool that we still have these events. I hope they stay around. I hope we get more of them actually in the future. But this is a good one. It's a good golf course. We got a good field, a couple of really nice players. It thins out at the bottom a little bit, which is to be expected, but it's a good field at the top. This should be a good tournament.
Yeah, it's weird. So it's actually now where a lot of the guys who are outside that top 50 are kind of vying for positioning next year for the January portion of the schedule. But because we are still pre-President's Cup, you have some of those higher end guys who are trying to get more reps in. It is a pretty decent field. Like, it's not just a completely horrible field. You've got some guys at the top. You've got some of the middle players. It is not just a race to the bottom this week.
No, I'm sure. Look, a horrible field for a PGA Tour event is probably a little strong.
Sure.
But we are going to see some of those this fall. Right? There are going to be some events where nobody that you know is playing. It doesn't make it a horrible field. Relatively speaking, it does. So I understand what you're saying there. But this one, we got some guys playing with a lot to play for. As they're tuning up, getting their game ready for the President's Cup. You got Sahith Theegala, Wyndham Clark, Max Homa, Corey Connors, all playing in the President's Cup this week or in a couple weeks. So there's a lot for those guys to be paying attention to, and it'll be cool to see if they can take down the rest of this field.
Yeah, well, Josh, if you want to fire up my screen, I've got the scorecard here, and I've got my website, rickrungood.com, that we can parse through for this episode. And don't be nervous about that new logo that you see on there. It is still the North Course at the Silverado Resort. It plays to a par 72, Greg, in a 35-37 configuration, which you don't see every day, those 3 par 5s on the second 9. And that word resort is right there in its name, Greg. Do we consider this kind of a resort course? Hit it wherever you want, go find it, and make a lot of birdies?
Not quite. There are a couple differences from what I typically think of when it comes to a resort course. Now, don't be confused. This is not going to be the U.S. Open. But winning scores are typically low 20s, high teens, which for a golf course that's under 7,200 yards at a par 72, Rick, I actually think it holds up rather nicely. This is the kind of setup you look at the card and you think, okay, this could be 30 under. They could tear this place apart. And they don't exactly tear it up. Max Homa won at 16 under on this golf course. So it does hold its own. Part of that is the tree-lined fairways. The fairways are very narrow. They average like 20 yards wide, which is really narrow. And it's tree-lined. It's not woods. It's not out of play if you miss the fairway. But there's definitely a value in driving. And when I look at these past winners, Rick, with Theegala, he may be an exception. But you got Max Homa, Stuart Sink, Cameron Champ, Kevin Tway, Emiliano Grillo, Brendan Steele. These guys are great drivers of the golf ball in one way or another, whether it's very long, good total drivers. That seems to be a common thread in the winners here.
Yeah, I think you're right. And the recent winning score. So when Sahith Theegala won this last year, 21 under par, tied the tournament record. That's what Stuart Sink had in 2020. But like you said, Greg, 16 under and 19 under for Max Homa. Cam Champ at 17, Kevin Tway 14 under. I mean, it is not necessarily going to just be birdies on birdies on birdies, and you've got to keep your ball under control. And when you start to look at the two nines being configured here, you've got some longer par threes, right? You've got 197 and 212 on the front side, 189, 182. And as Josh was pointing out in the chat, the forecast is a touch windy right now. So you could get some interesting stuff that goes down this week.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to say it, right? There is trouble to be found, I guess, is the best way to say it. It's been an interesting year for this in this area of the country as well. The winter was extremely wet, which was a long time ago, but they had like 60 inches of rain in 3 months. There was a storm that created $1 million worth of damage to the golf course. It took out some 68 trees across 2 courses. And there were 40 plus trees that had to have, that had damaged limbs. So there was definitely some interesting things going on. Then the summer was extremely hot. So I'm curious to see what that means for the golf course. I think the winter is far enough away where it doesn't mean it's going to be soft, but just some interesting things coming in. Also, you hear 68 trees gone. That sounds like a lot, but it's like, 2 a hole, basically. So not necessarily all that many trees. So I think that definitely still will present a challenge.
Yeah, over how many hundreds of acres, remember,
Right.
those few dozen trees are coming out. Well, hopefully get some more information. The interview schedule is pretty interesting. Minwoo Lee, Luke Clanton is on the interview schedule. A couple of Canadian President's Cuppers and Corey Connors and Mackenzie Hughes are going to speak on Tuesday. So that should be good stuff there. I want to dive into the top of the board and start going through this tier by tier, Greg. We're going to reset, and we're going to start with that after a quick word from our partners.
Football action continues. Are you ready for this? Ready to take chances? As the gridiron is taken over by the Great White North. It's time to storm the fortress. It's time to fight on the battlefield. Catch the Canadian Football League on CBS Sports Network.
And we're back. Here is the cheat sheet on rickrungood.com. And there are 3 golfers, 3 stand alone at the top of this board. They are all 3 on the United States President's Cup squad. Sahith Theegala, our defending champion, is 10,600. Wyndham Clark, 10,400, and twice a winner in September of 2022 and the 2022 season, which was in 2020. It's all very confusing. Max Homa is $10,000 even, Greg. We have spent a lot of time talking about these 3. Now they are the most expensive guys on the slate. Are we spending up for one of these guys?
I probably, yes, we're spending up. I think you want to have Sahith Theegala or Wyndham Clark on your team. I'm going to pass on Max Homa. So why don't we just start there with Homa, Rick?
Okay.
When Max Homa won this tournament back-to-back, like I said, driving is such an important aspect. And it was really important leading in. He was driving the ball really well leading into both of his wins. Driving it really well leading into his T7 last year as well. And it's gone. It has completely fallen off the map. I don't know if the final 2 rounds we saw at the BMW were an indication of something maybe turning the corner. But I have too many concerns. The guy has lost strokes off the tee in every single tournament since the Masters. And in his last 2, 6.5 and over 9 at the BMW Championship. Red alarm bells for me. I'm passing on Max Homa.
Unfortunately, it is not even just the driver. As much as he has been basically the worst driver on tour since the Masters, struggling in other places too. And that tends to happen, right? I mean, you just start applying a lot more pressure to other parts of your game. He's lost strokes on approach in 4 out of his last 6. The putter has kind of gone away from him. He's lost in 5 out of 7. Things compound, Greg. And not a lot of time has passed since we last saw him. There is not a ton of evidence that there's going to be some quick turnaround. This is a tough spot for Max, who is trying to now prove that he should be on that President's Cup team.
Yeah, and look, that can happen. It can be an important thing. Justin Thomas felt a huge sigh of relief when he got selected for that team last year and started to play better. I think he felt relieved going into it. I'm not sure how Max Homa is feeling. But the other interesting thing about Max Homa is the switch with his coach. He's apparently, as I heard from Colt Knost, gone away from Mark Blackburn. Now, I haven't seen that anywhere else, but I trust Colt with these kind of things. And so I find that to be very curious. But that being said, I think Wyndham Clark is probably my top play in this range. I've been so impressed with his game. He's been driving it so well coming in. He has control over the golf ball. The putter's in line. And I really, even though he's the second highest priced player in this field, I do think he is the best player in this field.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I kind of categorize Sahith and Wyndham Clark as kind of two very low floor or high ceiling golfers. But if you just kind of compare those two against one another, Wyndham has been way more consistent than Sahith has been, which is even saying a lot. Both have high end finishes, but Sahith has a couple of kind of weird ones in between there as well. So I'm with you. I rank them Wyndham Clark, Sahith, and then kind of a distant third to Max Homa, who I would need something to drastically change in the next couple of days for me to even consider kind of getting a lot of exposure to Max.
Yeah. Look, if you take Max, it's a contrarian play. There may be a game theory version to go down if ownership goes that way. And perhaps the move to the President's Cup really inspires him. He's a good golfer. He's a very, 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 very good golfer. So it's not to say that he can't figure it out, but in this price range, he's clearly third.
I will say this, that Sahith does have a pretty significant course history advantage over Wyndham Clark. The win, the T6, and then another T14 in 2020. So 3 out of his 4 trips to Napa have been very good, while Wyndham Clark, I believe, still looking for his first finish inside the top 30. I believe the T30, in 2021 was his best finish.
Different kind of player now, though, right? He's in a totally different area with his game. That would be the only thing I'd say about Wyndham and his course history. And Thigala's looks great. Hey, maybe there's an angle. A lot of back-to-back winners here. Guys like to repeat here. You had Homa do it. You had
Steele do it.
Steele did it. I feel like there was another, but it might not even have been at Silverado. Anyway, maybe Thigala's next, but I'm still leaning a little Wyndham over Thigala.
Yeah, so let's see. Since Wyndham last played this event, he's won 1, 2, 3 times, a bunch of runner-up finishes, and played on a Ryder Cup. So he's kind of a different guy.
Yeah. One of them was a U.S. Open.
Yeah, not
two Siggies.
Not too bad. Not too bad. The 9K range, very interesting. So Corey Connors is 9,800. Luke Clanton back in action. Sure. 95. Maverick McNeely is 94. Minwoo Lee, 93. Keith Mitchell, Brendan Todd, and JJ Spawn are 92, 91, and $9,000 respectively. So this is, there's some firepower here, Greg, but we got to figure out whose week it is.
So I'm very interested in Luke Clanton. I think he has shown a prowess off the tee that is required here at Silverado. He's also been very good in all the ball striking categories. And his short game and putting have come and gone, and his results kind of follow his short game and putting. And if he chips and putts well, he gets himself right in the mix. I think there's a ton of upside, more upside than anybody else in the 9K range with Luke Clanton. Which
the
is
numbers,
kind of surprising.
The numbers are like insane, right? And I know,
good.
I know he's only got like 6 starts, but they are they are nuts at how he hits it. Yes, sometimes the short game gets him into a little bit of trouble, but he's not completely irrelevant in those areas. Like, he's put together a couple of decent weeks, and man, he just, when he gets going, he is very difficult to stop.
You watch him at like the Wyndham or where else? But I guess the Rocket Mortgage was another great example. And you're like, okay, this guy's got a lot of room to grow. You know, there are things he does in his game that are not as good as they will be. And you look at these results, and he's played, 6 professional events?
Yeah.
And 3 of them are top 10s. It's insane. It's insane stuff. He's only missed 1 cut. And you watch him and you say, oh, he's a pup. He's a young pup. But boy, the pup can fly. So I love Luke Clanton this week. I think he's just worth it at 9,500.
Yeah, he's 95, and I think I'm square in line with you there. I'm always a Maverick McNeely guy, so I don't put too much emphasis there, but I do have trouble trying to find the second guy in this range, right? If it's not Clanton and then my built-in baseline on McNeely, which I might be wrong on. I just like the way he plays and, has a lot of good skills. Like, who's the next guy, Greg? Like, how do I decide between the rest of these fellas?
I think the next guy is all the way at the bottom. I think it's JJ Spawn. You look at what he's done over his last 3 starts, and all of a sudden he's like a complete player. He's performing all the way across the board, and it's led to a T29, a T9, and a T3. And even before that, you had in a top 25 at the John Deere, a tied 10th at the Rocket Mortgage. That you're coming up on like 6 weeks of really solid play for JJ Spawn. And in the last 3, it's been really good all the way across the board. And he also has some pretty decent performance here. He came in tied 11th last year. He came in tied 9th in 2020. So he has put it together on this golf course. And I think he's in line to do that again.
Yeah, this is really interesting. You're right. It has been gaining in all facets for JJ dating back to late June. And that's a lot of good. That's a lot of good play, a lot of good signs, and then a couple of high-end finishes as well. Okay, I can get behind JJ Spawn. He is the cheapest in this range here, and he's flushing it right now. He leads this field in strokes gained approach over the last 36 rounds. Anybody else in this 9K range worth a consideration before we truck on?
One other guy.
Okay.
He may be too expensive at 9,100. Brendan Todd. Brendan Todd's fascinating to me because you look at his numbers, and from a ball striking standpoint, they're always bland, right? It's not terrible by any means. Like, if you hit it 280 yards off the tee, like he does, and you're losing a third of a shot over the course of 4 rounds, no, you're not driving it badly, right? This isn't where we are with Max Homa kind of a situation. This is just a function of his distance. So I think you have to look at a player like Brendan Todd through a slightly different lens when you look at it statistically. And on this golf course, in his last 2 starts, he has 2 top 10s. He was solo 6th in 2023 and tied 9th in 2022. And this is just a sign of a player on a golf course that he can handle. And all of a sudden, the accuracy can play in his favor. Short enough. He's putting it out of control right now. I mean, 4 out of his last 5 events, he's gained over 4.5 strokes putting. 4.5. That's great.
He's one of the few guys that can out putt his ball striking. It's not that he's a bad ball striker. You're right. He just statistically, he's like always going to lose off the tee because he's never long enough. And then if he can just kind of put together like this, I think the John Deere is the ideal profile for him. It's just lose a little bit off the tee, a small gain on approach, pretty good around the greens, and then just roll in all those putts like Brendan Todd does. That's like the ideal profile for him. And certainly capable of doing it.
I think we've seen it on this golf course too. Right? I mean, he's had a couple of events here where he's gained over 2 strokes approaching the green. In his last 3 here at the Fortinet at Silverado, he's gained over 2 in his last 3 approaching the green, and he's putted very well too. In fact, in that 6th place finish, he gained 9 strokes putting. So it's probably a little bit of a heavy lean on the putter, which is why I'd put him behind JJ Spawn, and why I think he's probably just priced a little too high, but he is a guy that I think will have a good week.
Okay, cool. I love it. Well, we are going to continue this conversation. We'll get to the 8K range and then find some value in both the 7s and the 6s. But first, we're going to take a quick break and hear a word from our partners.
You hear that? It's the steady pulse of the world's game that's turning fans into family and sport into passion. You hear that? It's the heartbeat of American soccer. The USL on CBS Sports Network.
And we're back. We've got 10 golfers in the $8,000 range. We start with Hoagie and Harris English and Eric Cole at the top. Patrick Rogers, Doug Gim sitting towards the middle. And then we round it out with Adam Svensson, Bo Hostler, Chan Kim, and then Mackenzie Hughes and Mac Meisner. A lot of M's down at the bottom of this range. Greg, I've identified 4 guys here that I'm comfortable with. I'm not sure how you feel about this range. Let's dive into it.
I have 4 guys as well.
Oh,
I'm curious to see if they line up.
interesting.
Okay, so first, my number 1, I'll cut the line and go first here.
Okay.
My number 1 is Eric Cole.
He is one of mine.
Okay, like gimme. He doesn't fit the role of great driver of the golf ball. That's not a forte of his, but this guy's just ready to go. His ball striking, his iron play is back, right? He's gained in 4 straight, 6 out of the last 7. It's been great. His putting has been phenomenal up until the BMW Championship. End of the season, I give guys a little bit of a slack at that point. You don't feel like you can make the Tour Championship. You got to go play 4 rounds, and you know it's over after this. That can be a tough spot. But he also has a 4th place finish here last year at this venue. I think Eric Cole's ready to do that again.
Yeah, I agreed. It's just a guy who gets kind of streaky, who has a lot of really good finishes in his career, is starting to put it together again. I'm with you. We are 1 for 1. What's number 2?
Right below him, Patrick Rogers.
Oh, okay. We diverge here. I'm interested to hear the case for Patrick Rogers.
Okay, so Patrick Rogers has been very consistent since the Travelers. The last time he missed a cut was the Memorial in early June. He's made every cut since then. His best finish is a T5 at the Barracuda. It's been a lot of, top 35 finishes, not top 25s. The thing I like about Patrick Rogers is his driving ability. I really like what he does with the putter. I like that combo. It reminds me of a Kevin Tway kind of a style, right? A Cam Champ kind of a style. It would not surprise me if Patrick Rogers added his name to this list of winners. I think he would fit right in. And his game is good enough where that could happen this week. I think Patrick Rogers gets himself in contention.
Is Patrick Rogers still looking for that first win?
Yes.
Oh, Patrick, come on, bud.
I know. He's too good for that.
It's time.
It's time. I think it's going to happen for him. I'm not sure when, but it might be this week.
Okay, might just be this week. Yeah, like you said, putts it great, drives it well, can start to put some things together. Okay, you've got 2 done. Let's see if we can match back up here.
Okay. I don't think we're going to match up again.
Okay, perfect. That's probably good.
There's one of the 2 guys I have left. I am nearly certain he's one of your 4.
Okay.
But next I got Chan Kim.
Okay, that's one of them.
Oh, okay.
We're back, baby.
We're back. Yeah, look at this ball striking.
It's
phenomenal.
insane. It's not even just the ball striking. He's been one of the best, like raw strokes gained. He has been one of the best players in this field since the John Deere. Now, he's been beating up on John Deere Classic, 2 alternate field events. And then, I mean, the Wyndham was probably the best field that he played in, finished T12 there. And the numbers are eye-popping in the ball striking categories.
Yeah, I mean, he's gained over 3 strokes approaching the green in 4 out of his last 5. That's really impressive. Ball striking, you're talking over 6 in 3 out of his last 4. The one week that I was on him at the 3M Open, I was all over him at the 3M Open. He missed the cut. But I think that this comes back. He shows a sign at the Wyndham that the 3M was the anomaly, and these eye-popping numbers I can't pass on.
Yeah, it's honestly pretty insane. And yeah, it's really good stuff. I'm interested to see if he can continue it again this week. Okay. Well, let's see if we can get that third match.
Yeah, and it's a Mac, but not a President's Cup Mac. It's Mac.
Perfect.
Right.
Perfect. Yeah.
So he has some pretty eye-popping ball striking numbers going too, and has been pretty complete, quite frankly, all around. Even his short game, although not the last 2 weeks, his short game has been pretty darn good too. He's shown ability in all 4 areas, and we've seen over the last 4 weeks at least, maybe you could say 5 weeks, this really high grade ball striking acumen, and it's given him a 4th place finish at the Barracuda, tied 12th at the Wyndham, tied 16th at the ISCO, tied 20th at the John Deere. The results are starting to follow behind as well.
Agreed. The only guy that we did not connect on was Bo Hostler, who has a bunch of decent finishes around here. The problem that he has had in Napa is that he has drove it very poorly. And despite that, he still put up 4 consecutive top 30s. He's driving it much better now. So I'm just trying to find the marriage of those 2 things. But otherwise, Greg, you and I were simpatico on the 8K range.
It's fascinating to see his number for the Wyndham, gaining 2.5 strokes off the tee, because he got in the mix early. What did he shoot? 60?
I think he was. Yes, I think he was the first round leader. Was he not?
He was the first round leader. He shot 60.
Yeah, and then it wasn't very good.
He started getting away from him off the tee a little bit in the second round, and then I didn't really see much of him in the final 2 rounds. So maybe just that nervous pressure of getting himself in the mix led to some of those driving woes, because clearly it's a good performance for the week overall. And you're right, he has been driving it better. But
yeah,
I watched that Friday round at the Wyndham a little too closely.
Hey, listen, I think I saw him hit a couple shots up close and personal, and it wasn't pretty. So I don't blame you for that. The 7K range. This is generally a large range. So right now we've got over 30 golfers, over 40 golfers, 43 of them. And I'll tell you what, Greg, I'm not super impressed. I found a few. Maybe I'm being a bit too selective in this field. Maybe I've been spoiled with some of the deeper fields that we've gotten through the playoffs. I like the 8K range a lot better. I know that would make sense, but usually there's some diamonds in the rough here. I'm not so sure.
It's a little tough, especially because the guys that I really like in this 7K range are all near the top. Right. So and it's such a big range. I mean, I'm going through, not like you. No. Is there anybody that, am I missing something here? So I have 2 guys that I think are options in the lower 7K range. I think you have some good options in the upper 7K range.
Okay.
And let's start right at 7,900. Rick, you done? Are you done with Matt Kuchar?
So I'm always done with Matt Kuchar, but I think this is a good spot for him. He's playing great golf. The Wyndham was ugly for a couple of reasons. The way he kind of faltered on the weekend, and then of course coming back on Monday to finish 18. But despite that, it's a T12. If you look at his results around here, you're going to get some decent numbers there. T7 last year, T12, T36. I would say if you've been rolling out Matt Kuchar, even if you haven't, seems like another good opportunity for him.
That situation at the Wyndham will have zero effect on Matt Kuchar.
Of course.
So I think he's going to show up ready to go. So he's an option. I think a pretty good one. I'm very curious about Johnny Vegas. I wrote his name down with a question mark next to it because he's so darn good off the tee. But the putter seems to be an issue. He popped off at the 3M with the putter and won. It's been an issue surrounding that. Is that a big enough concern, Rick, where you should just stay away from Johnny Vegas, or do you think this guy's playable?
Well, I think that his win at the 3M Open is one of the greatest statistical unlikelihoods, quite honestly. And what I mean by that is he is a horrible putter. Loses 3, 4, 5 strokes putting. We have seen that even sometimes, and as rare as it is, when he does gain 4 or 5 strokes putting, it rarely turns into anything significant. The last couple of times he's done it in the last few years, gains 5 at PGA National, that's a T21. Gains 4 at the Canadian Open, that's only a T27. Then he gets 5 and gets a win. I think it is one, very unlikely that he gains another 4 or 5 strokes putting, which he probably has to do to contend. And even if he does, I'm not sure it necessarily means he's going to contend. So I'm in general, hat tip Johnny Vegas. You got yourself a nice win, a nice payday, nice bump in the status. But man, that to me, I'm not sure that's going to age very well. I think we're going to look back and see a 1 in the middle of a lot of kind of just middling stuff.
I think that's very fair. And that's why I put a question mark next to his name. I like the point about it hasn't necessarily led to great results when he has putted well. Which we do see some guys where it's like, oh, if they're going to gain 2 strokes putting, like they are in it.
That's
Max Homa in the early part of his career.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a really good point. All right, so he's a no. All right. In the yes column, I think it's time to roll out your boy, Rico Hoey.
Oh, okay. All right. Now, see, where our minds are melding together, Greg. Yes.
Yeah, he's next on my list. All right. The ball striking numbers are great. And this is the kind of talent that you see. I know you spent some time with him or around him, and the other professionals speak very highly of him.
Yeah.
And now you're starting to see, after a really tough season, I watched him this season because I thought this was going to happen, and it took a long time. But we got to the Rocket Mortgage Classic after missing seemingly every cut, and it's tied 6th, tied 26th, tied 2nd, tied 8th, tied 67th, tied 22nd. Seems like he's ready to go and ready to play, ready to showcase this talent, and you're still getting him at a pretty darn good price at $7,700.
I think what we have to remember is that a lot of the guys in this field just finished their first PGA Tour season. And now I know it's not technically the 2025 season, but it is going to feel like that for a lot of guys. And I think Rico is one of the guys that you can almost see him getting comfortable in his results. And he missed a lot of cuts to start the year. Then he got, it was like, okay. Then he missed a lot of cuts, and then he started to figure it out. And I'm interested to see what the second year, not technically, but you know what I'm saying, like the second year guys get into now that they have that experience under their belts.
And this is kind of like a Q school this whole fall. I don't know where exactly he is in the FedEx Cup, but it's not very good. He's got work to do this fall. So I think that's another interesting aspect, as he's now comfortable. Can he step on the gas a little bit and really secure a solid position for next year where you get a chance to have an actual second year on tour.
Correct. Right. It's interesting. It's yeah, okay. So he was on my short list. Then I threw, so right by him, Matty Schmid was 7,600 and Neil Shipley was 7,600. We've talked about Neil Shipley a couple of times. You know, I think the jury is still very much out on who the best of those young guys are. Neil Shipley has a putting problem, but he has flashed a little bit of solid putting at the ISCO. I believe that T6 was one shot out of the playoff, right? Because that was a 5-man playoff.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
That's right.
So that's one. And then Matty Schmid was the other, who just came back from the European Masters and like put up a really great stat profile and finished T17. So Schmid was the other guy there that I liked in the middle.
Yeah, I think they're both good options. I probably prefer Shipley to Schmid. I'm wondering what Schmid's real ceiling is. I think Shipley's is a lot higher. But I'm with you. Those two guys caught my attention in the middle of the range as well.
Okay. The bottom of this range and a little bit lower. Patrick Fishburne's been pretty hot. He missed the cut at the Wyndham, and that ended his season, Greg. But the run up before that, 420 top 25s in his last 5, including 3 straight top 15s. He's actually the 3rd best player in this field in raw strokes gained over the last 36. Now you're going to see it's basically the same set of events that Chan Kim played, right? Where it's 2 opposite field events and some of the weaker stuff. But man, can't deny the way that he's putting green squares up on the board.
It's phenomenal. And that's why he made my list as well.
Cool.
I'm extremely impressed with him. I think there's very high upside, and he could fit that kind of Cam Champ mold. It seems like he's figured something out off the tee. I know he's long, so he's going to gain strokes off the tee. But at the 3M Open, he was talking about some changes he made to his driver that have really improved his accuracy. And I think we've seen that in the numbers. The driving is off the charts, and that could go a long way here. And the Wyndham Champ, this is the perfect time to get in on it. Right after a miscut. Perfect time to buy in.
A miscut on the number in which he gained 2.7 strokes off the tee. He lost a stroke with the putter. Like, who cares?
Sign me up. He could have won the thing. Yeah, he made the cut on the number.
This is the greatest miscut line you're ever gonna get.
Did he gained strokes total and missed the cut?
Yeah, so it's rare, so that just means he missed the cut like on the number. Yeah.
Nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah. So sign me up. From here it gets a little dicey.
Yeah, those were the ones that I liked. I mean Daniel Berger, who's having trouble finding a weekend. Gary Woodland, who I've been waiting for 2 years, and I'm still waiting. I even like Pearson Coody, who got himself into that playoff at the ISCO, but his ball striking numbers are horrible, which is shocking to me. I mean, Goddard has done nothing since the win. I mean, I'm looking for guys. I'm trying to find reasons, and I'm not convinced by much.
No, I'm not either. I got 2 guys that I think are potential plays, and it's not great, but it's not terrible. One is Chad Ramey. Okay, like you always say, he pops up every once in a while.
Yeah.
Now
he was the answer to a trivia question we had the other day.
I forget the question.
It was
I remember the answer.
Who did Rory and Shane Lowry beat in the Zurich playoff? And it was Martin Laird and Chad Ramey.
That's right. That's right. But I think his numbers have been fine. You're not going to get, it's kind of becoming clear. Even if he pops up on Thursday and Friday, don't get too excited because he has a tendency of fading when he does that. But he's still putting up some consistent results. He's making cuts. And I think his numbers are okay relative to the other, his peers from a price perspective. So I wouldn't mind throwing that in. Maybe this is the week that he turns it around on the weekend because he clearly has the game. The only other guy.
Hold on. Before you say that, I got it wrong again. It wasn't Martin Laird. It was Martin Trainer.
Oh,
The most forgettable playoff that I didn't even remember was a playoff, and I still cannot, after being told multiple times who was in it, remember who was in it.
yeah, that's tough.
Who's
Who is
the other guy?
again?
I don't know.
Yeah, Martin Trainer. Oh, there were some ugly shots in that playoff. You could feel it's over. You could feel like professional golf is hard.
Oh my God. All right. Sorry. Who was that other guy? I cut you off.
This is a big stretch.
Perfect.
But there's some little things you could hang on to. It'd be Zach Blair.
$7,000 even.
$7,000 even. Here's the thing about Zach Blair. It's very much a Brendan Todd situation, but it's at 7,000. Okay. You are going to lose strokes off the tee every week because you don't hit it anywhere. But when you look at what he does here, he can actually gain strokes off the tee. He's finished tied 4th here before, tied 12th 2 years ago in 2022. So he has a couple of nice finishes. And I think looking at his play, tied 2nd at the ISCO. He was in that giant playoff, tied 45th at the Wyndham, couple missed cuts in between. But there's just everything in the game's kind of bland. I think this could be a spot where I'll say it this way, Rick. This is a spot where you can play Zach Blair. Right.
Because there's about 6 of them every year.
Yes. Very limited. I think you can here. And he's showing very middling form. But this is the range. This is the range we're talking about. It's not very good.
If you think that is not very good, there are 77 golfers who are cheaper than that. The 6K range, which there's a ton of guys at 6,900, includes Lonto Griffin, Nick Hardy, etc. The middle of this range is Kevin Chappell, Kevin Doherty, Parker Cootie. The bottom of the range, the absolute min price guys, I think Mike Weir. Oh no, Mike Weir is actually $100 more expensive than the minimum. He's 6,100. Ryan Brem is in here at $6,000 flat. Nick Watney, Paul Barjon. I thought Paul Barjon was gonna win a golf tournament when he first. Nah, I don't think so.
I don't either.
I really don't think so. But man, I used to just buy those 500 to 1 Paul Barjon tickets every single week, and
you've stopped.
Should have been 5,000 to 1.
Yeah, but I mean, it could have been 5 million to 1.
Yeah, same result.
0.
What do you got, Gregors?
Tough range, real tough. I think Joseph Bramlett has shown signs of not terrible play. It's been terrible putting. Really not great with the putter, and that's a problem. But he came and tied 12th 2 years ago here when he actually did putt well. Just kind of feels like a long hitter who could contend.
Let me ask you about what I think is maybe the most interesting. I don't necessarily mean that it's good, but interesting guy in this range. And I think it's Stuart Sink at $6,700. He's 51 years old, Greg. How do I reconcile the fact that he has been average to below average on the PGA Tour? Nothing horrible, nothing great, but like T52, T62, T46, whatever. But he's beaten up on the old guys. He wins couple 3 weeks ago, finishes 3rd last week on the senior tour. He's won this event. He has won this event. He won it in 2021, I believe. No, 2020. That's a long time ago. And he's got a bunch of miscuts surrounding that. But how do I reconcile beating up on the old guys and being a past champion?
All right, so let's take it just, how do you reconcile just that?
Yeah.
You look at what he does on the PGA Tour, not what he does in PGA Tour Champions.
Come on, Greg.
It's even weaker than like DP World Tour stuff.
Well,
there's a crossover there. It's a totally different ball game. Totally different from golf course setup, golf course length. I mean, they're great players. Don't get me wrong, but you're comparing things that aren't comparable.
He's got to go up against Cheating Bernhard Longer every week.
It's not easy to win out there, and he did. But that doesn't mean you're going to win on the PGA Tour or even come close.
Well, I'll tell you what, he's going to continue to crush those guys. So get your PGA Tour Champions tickets in on Stuart Sink.
Yeah, he really is.
Yeah.
But that being said, Rick, if you're looking for reasons in the 6K range, who am I to criticize it? You know, relatively speaking, down in the 6K range, there you could say, hey, there's confidence. He's playing good golf. He's playing good golf here. That's not crazy. I mean, look at these other guys we're going to be talking about here. One other one popped up to me, like Lanto Griffin, also at 6,900. I feel like he's turning a corner. I'd play him at 6,900. There's an old matrix. Lanto Griffin.
I've burned that matrix 10 times over.
Yeah. But there's a sign last 3 weeks, things are getting a little better for him.
It's actually been a lot better. Yeah. So he gained 9 strokes to the field, finished T10 at the ISCO, T40 at the Barracuda, T44 at the 3M. The two guys that I got here, Trace Crow is $6,900 and he's gone T24 and T7. Hits enough fairways, hits a lot of greens. He has been a positive in all 4 strokes gain categories in his last 36. That is interesting. And then just as you probably didn't see it, I'll give everybody an update that Henrik Norlander has just come back from his 2-week stint on the DP World Tour. He finished 53rd at the British Masters, T8 at the European Masters. Those are both going to be deeper fields than what he's probably battling against this week. Has a massive putter problem. Like, cannot putt.
Yeah.
But, hey, $6,800.
I wrote down 3 guys and then as low as I'd go. And as low as I'd go guy, it was Bramlett, Griffin, and Norlander. Right. They're all 69 or 6,800.
Who was as low as you'd go?
You're going to hate this.
This is going to be dirty.
You're going to hate this. It's at 6,600.
Oof.
Okay. I looked through every single player. I went to the mid price range. I didn't skip over anybody. This is as low as I'd go. 6,600. Ches Reavie. It's terrible. It's just terrible. So why would I go that low? He's gained strokes in 4 straight on approach. He's not very long, but he's very accurate. So he can pound some fairways out here, which I like. There's been signs of some better putting lately, and he's played a ton here, including a tied 3rd to Stuart Sink. 20.
This is actually, we were talking about guys that missed the cut on the number and how it's kind of unlucky. Reavie's done that in each of his last 2 starts. So he has actually gained strokes to the field in 4 straight, but it's a T10, a T44, and 2 missed cuts, which is kind of stinks.
Yeah.
And this would look a lot. I mean, if he makes the cut and then finishes T4, if he had 3 straight T44s in a top 10, I think a lot of people would be more interested, especially on the golf.
To be like 7,200.
Yeah. And especially on a golf course where, keep it in play off the tee, which is his strength. And so if I'll go back here because Reavie is 4th in this field in strokes gained approach in the last 36. He is 3rd in driving accuracy. He is 34th in greens and regulation, and he is $6,600.
So I would do that. And why is that? I mean, that sounds even better than what I was thinking, Rick. But why is that worse than Joseph Bramlett or Lanto Griffin or Henrik Norlander? Probably not.
I don't think
that's actually, now that you say it that way, it's a better play than Norlander.
I agree with you.
He has a terrible record here and a serious putting problem.
If you want to see a guy shoot like 65, 85, Norm Zhang is in this field.
Oh, he can. What a golf swing. Man. So talented.
Whatever direction he's going in, good luck stopping him. Good luck.
He is a train gathering momentum.
Runaway train. Just runaway train.
Look at all
Sometimes
the
it's sick.
red, Rick.
It is. I mean, I feel like I said this a year ago and nothing has changed. How is JB Holmes still getting into fields? What is his status?
I don't know.
He's
It's gotta
missed
be past champion
1, 2,
status
3,
of
4,
sorts.
5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. He's missed 13 cuts in a row. That dates back to March of 2023. So I guess he's not playing as much as I think he is. I just see his name every single time. So he's played 13 times in a year and a half. He hasn't made a cut. Oh man, JB, I hate to just
Call you out.
but boy, this ain't great.
No. Feels like there's a lot fewer Corn Ferry Tour rookies.
Well, because of the new Paul Barjon. My goodness. What happened, Paul? Look at this. He won. He won the Corn Ferry Tour Championship. And I'm like, here we go. The year of 2024. It's Paul Barjon. It's all Paul Barjon.
No, it isn't.
It is not.
It is not. Holy cow, is that red?
Well, I think it is because, Greg, so the Corn Ferry grads, do they start now or do they start in January?
Must be January.
I think it's got to be January because we're not getting like McCarty. We're not getting those guys.
Yeah, they're not here.
Yeah. So I think it's your observation is 100% correct, and I think it's because of the new fall type of deal.
I guess it makes sense in a way. It also, I'd like to see those guys
because they have an event this week, but there's a lot of guys that are already locked up for.
Yeah. Oh, maybe they'll get in the mix in the next couple weeks. The rest of the fall events.
This is the Simmons Bank this week, which I think is they got to be in their playoffs at some point.
So, right. So they're just not done. That's why.
Yeah.
Okay. So probably after President's Cup, we'll start to see those guys.
Okay, cool. Yeah. We're going to get an injection of a lot of good names coming back.
Yeah. Yeah. It's going to be cool. It's always a cool thing to follow and watch.
I like those guys. All right, Greg, any final thoughts before we get on out of here?
I'm looking forward to it. I'm happy the golf season's back. So we are so back.
We're so back.
So I'm fired up.
Jets tonight. Aaron Rodgers, fingers crossed. Just want to see him play a whole game.
Holding thumbs. Right. Yeah, this is as a Jets fan, I am dreading. This is a terrible place to start this season with all the hype. But hey, if you want to be the best, you got to beat the best. But
I've heard that. You have to do it. I will tell you what, I will ride with you and I will bet those pesky Jets and take 4 points tonight.
Really?
Yeah, I don't care. I mean, they're all coin flips anyway, right? I just want a reason to watch the game.
Yeah. I'm not going to bet anything anywhere on this game tonight.
You don't have to. You are invested in this game already.
These games are too late, Rick. You got it made with the West Coast sports.
You gotta move out here, bud. It is insane. I mean, Monday Night Football is over, and I'm like, what else can I do tonight?
I'm sitting there last night with the Sunday games on. My wife and I are on the couch. She likes football too, fortunately. And it's like 9:07, and I look at her. I say, well, "We got one more series."
Yeah, it's crazy. I don't know how you guys do it. It's wild.
We don't watch. That's how we do it in this house.
Yeah, we'll check our phones tomorrow morning.
Yeah, what else can you do? I can't do it.
No,
so,
it's too much.
Anyway,
the rest of this week, tomorrow we will be back mega preview pod for the Procore Championship, and then a Sunday recap show. I'm gonna say thank you, Josh. Does all the hard work behind the scenes. That right there, Greg DuCharme. You can find him at The Real GFD, and you can find me at Rick Run Good. This has been The First Cut. We'll catch you next time.